Hey, Davina.
Hi, Nadine.
How are you?
I'm very well, thanks. Thank you so much for having me today.
Not at all. It's such a pleasure to have you here. Yeah, it feels really good to have you in the room, especially when I know that you're doing so much great work. Um, we met at an event called Common and Kind, and we were in the same the same event people, Beethoven Orchestra of Humanity, founded by the wonderful conductor Michael Carter-Young and his wife, who's the mezzo-soprano Teresa Carter-Young. And they're a wonderful team, just giving a really diverse audience and a diverse way of communicating to an audience through orchestra, word and sound. So yeah, it was so lovely to meet you there.
Yeah, likewise. Yeah.
Yeah, it's been a wonderful journey. And what did we do? We did, I think we did Morgan, didn't we?
We did Strauss Morgan, which you sang very beautifully. And I was there. Thank you. Played the cello. I remember we played one piece and then we had a break of about 2 hours and then we went on and played another piece or something.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, it was quite interesting. But Common and Kind is such an amazing event, and it does so much for people in music, and it brings music to people who wouldn't normally get it. It also gives them an opportunity to identify with expression and the amount of choirs. I mean, how many choirs?
Oh, I don't know, but they seem to fill the entire building.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like we had 400 people singing with us and all these voices going on at the same time. It's just incredible. So it's a wonderful event to be a part of. Let's hope that Common and Kind can get back to its expression next year.
Yeah, fingers crossed.
Yeah,
and live performance.
And the Beethoven Orchestra of Humanity, because we were supposed to do something this year and we didn't get a chance to. So let's hope that we get to do that next year. So it is 9:01. And hi, everybody. I am Nadine Benjamin, international soprano. I'm also a certified high performance coach and an accredited NLP mind coach. N meaning neuro, linguistic and programming. So neuro, the brain, linguistic, how we speak to the brain, and programming, the patterns that we set up to challenge us or for opportunity. And I help people with those limiting beliefs. And I'm really here in connection on these Safe at Home sessions to share some of the wonderful people that I have in my world and have connected with, because I really believe in connecting, championing and celebrating people. That is my life's mission. and I just love it. So this morning we are here to celebrate Davina Shum. And Davina Shum is the creator and host of the podcast As It Comes, Life from a Musician's Point of View, which can be found on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Since its inception in June 2019, she has spoken to a wide variety of musicians from around the world about the peaks and troughs and downright weird things that musicians experience in their careers, as well as non-musical pursuits that influence and inform their creative output. Davina was selected as one of BBC Radio 3's Next Generation Voices in 2019, becoming a speech contributor shortly after. She features in the BBC podcast Time Travellers and has continued to write and contribute for Radio 3 since July 2019. She's also the presenter for the Europik Music Online Festival, which live-streamed world-class chamber music into the homes of many during the COVID 2019 pandemic over summer 2020. Davina began her career as a cellist in the Auckland Philharmonia Orchestra in her native New Zealand, followed by postgraduate studies at the Sydney Conservatorium of Music. She moved to London in 2013 as a member of the South Bank Sinfonia. I love them. And has since enjoyed a busy freelance schedule, playing with a wide range of ensembles such as Bournemouth Symphony and loads of others, as well as recording and performing with artists such as Max Richter, Trevor Horn, Kate Simcoe, and the London Electronic Orchestra. I mean, gosh, what a lovely an array of things.
I've never had someone just like read out my biography to me before.
Well, now you know what it sounds like.
Thanks. That was enlightening.
So as I say to everybody, if you know somebody that needs to be in connection, please pick up the phone to them. We really support that and champion that. If you need support yourself, please reach out. There are so many things available for people right now. And if you need help with that, tell a friend. I was thinking today, as I said the other day, you know, everything may be on hold, but we are not on hold. And how we think is how we feel, and how we feel is how we act. So let's raise our frequencies by listening to motivational things, by doing a little bit of meditation, by going for a walk, by telling someone you love them, by giving someone a hug if you can, or just, as I said, by picking up the phone, sending a text message, sending a WhatsApp, sending a voice message, sending a video message. I mean, look at all those things that I've said. Having a Zoom, which is too many of our lives at the moment. But, you know, and just find a way to connect, because there are many ways. Anyway, without further ado, let me get to Davina. Hey, Davina.
Hello.
So lovely to have you here, and it's such an honour to have you in this room with us this morning. So, how did you choose the cello as your instrument?
Well, I can answer that question very quickly for you, which is I started playing the cello when I was about 8 years old.
Oh, okay.
And then I never stopped.
Wow.
But basically, I think you probably want a little bit more detail in that. And
that would be great.
I would say that my journey as a cellist has been dictated by the social aspect of music making throughout my entire life. So I remember I started playing the cello at my local Saturday morning music school, and I was in the queue, in the line behind my best friend at primary school at the time, and she was signing up for lessons. And I asked her, what are you signing up for? She said, I'm signing up for cello lessons. I don't think I really knew what a cello was at that point. I'm not sure, but I just wanted to be with my friend. So I signed up for cello lessons as well, so that we could spend Saturday mornings together. So thus we embarked on a group lesson together. We did that for a year. I kept going and she stopped. So I think she probably sees on social media and stuff that I'm still playing the cello and thinking like, wow, you're still going. Impressive. So it's quite funny how that happened, and it was just always something that I did all throughout primary school, high school. I'd done a bit of piano and recorder as well in primary school, so you know, learning the cello was fun for me because I had that background knowledge of music theory and learning other instruments as well. But I was quite lucky in that when I went to high school, I was included in a very supportive group of friends that were all in the school orchestra as well. And there was no shame at all. Like we had our little group. We were kind of geeky. We were the music geeks, but we loved it. And we'd go to orchestra and we'd throw ourselves into rehearsals. And I just really found my crew in that way because we were doing something we loved. And that was, you know, that was great. And I liked the feeling that we could all pull together as friends and come up with great results. I remember our school orchestra entered a competition where we were sort of the underdogs, and we weren't a big orchestra, but we had a conductor that really focused on quality and finding good, proper repertoire for us to do. So we were a small orchestra, but we'd do things like Corelli and Beethoven, you know, in high school. And, you know, we weren't doing arrangements of pop songs and things like that, which, you know, there's a time and a place for that, but I felt like we would he was setting some good foundations for us. So I really liked that feeling of playing with my friends. And
not saying that pop isn't quality too, my love.
Oh, absolutely not. I mean, I have to say a lot of my musical education came from sitting in the car with my parents to and from school. So on the way to school, my dad would always have the classical music station playing. So I think a lot of osmosis there, a lot of, you know, famous tunes going into my brain at 8 a.m. And then mum would pick me up from school and she'd always have classic hits, songs from the 70s, 80s, 90s, and today. And so, you know, that's where I'd listen to like my Spandau Ballet, my Blondie, like you know, all those staple pop music tunes and stuff. So
because we need both worlds, don't we, Davina?
Totally. We need that balance as well. And I mean, I tell this to my students that I teach. I think it's really important that they listen to a wide breadth of music as well, because everything you listen to, no matter what type of music, is going to inform the music that you're trying to learn, I think. I found that when I was in high school, I was learning a bit of bass guitar as well. So I was playing it a little bit in the jazz groups and the concert band and stuff. But I found that really informed my cello playing. And likewise, because it's they're two different ways of learning music, really.
Oh, that's good morning, Marjorie. Good morning. Marjorie is saying good morning, Davina and Nadine. Lovely to have you here. And as always, anybody watching, if you want to send Davina a question or, you know, get involved in the conversation, please do. We're always open for that. And Davina will answer what she can from any of the questions that possibly come up. Thank you so much. So, you know, is in this second Safe at Home, Davina, you know, how has it been for you?
Well, I would say that it's been all right, actually. I've been coping quite well. I feel very lucky in my personal situation. I think I've got a nice roof over my head and a very loving and supportive husband and cat. Very important. But also it doesn't seem as severe as the first lockdown, where there was that initial shock of everything getting cancelled within a day, and then staring down the abyss of not knowing what on earth was going to happen for the next 6 months. This time I'm lucky enough I do get to leave the house at least once a week, because I teach at 2 schools, and one school I am teaching face-to-face now.
Oh, amazing.
With restrictions in place, obviously, and getting used to wearing a mask while playing and teaching. But that's been quite a blessing for me, actually, to have that face-to-face time with students. And I think good for the students as well, because if you think about this new cohort of year 7s coming into a secondary school, like what a year they've had, right? I mean, just think they would have finished primary school, year 6, very in March, not knowing that was the end, and now new school, new friends, new cello teacher, having to make those adjustments. And I do notice, maybe it's just the kids that I teach, but I do notice that there's a lot more engagement in their learning. For them, cello lessons, it's a chance for them to leave their classroom and talk to someone outside of their year group bubble or their household and have some one-to-one attention. And it's good for me as well, because I have to remember how to speak to another human being and communicate my skills as as a cellist onto these young children. So I feel very lucky I've been able to do that, and I'm continuing to teach a bit online as well. And I mean, I'm a bit of a homebody anyway. I would say my natural pace of life is quite andante. I mean, I remember this time last year, I was running around like crazy. I had one day off in November last year.
Wow.
And I spent that day off. I binged the whole of Fleabag in one day, 1 and 2, and then I got fish and chips for dinner and I ate them in bed. That was my one day off in November.
Oh my gosh, what a contrast!
And now this year I'm like, oh, I've grown vegetables, I've grown potatoes and tomatoes. I'm just gonna fetch some spring onions from the garden. I've changed. I think for the better. It's good for me to have that slightly different pace of life. I feel mentally it's given me a bit more space, and also to pursue the things I want to pursue, like the podcast.
Well, that beautifully brings us into the podcast, you know, as it comes, you know, which I've had the wonderful pleasure of being a guest on as well. But, you know, and that is your creative output. And it'd be great to know that, you know, to get to see what the meaning of behind that creative output is, and what you've noticed for other musicians that you've kind of interviewed and talked with about that. What's come up for you?
Yeah, for sure. Well, I mean, I think I think it was really important for me to highlight that musicians are normal people, you know. So I'm getting a little bit of an echo for some reason, so it's just slightly putting me off. I'll take that out. To highlight that musicians are normal people. I think a lot of the time we do hear classical musicians in particular in the public eye. We have the opportunity to hear them speak, say on radio or podcasts on TV, but only about the music that they are exploring at the time. And that can lead to some very esoteric discussion, you know, things that can really fly over the heads of certain people. I mean, like, I've got a master's degree in music and I don't understand a lot of stuff that's talked about. And I think I noticed a few years ago, I was listening to a lot of podcasts. I was listening to more podcasts than music at one point because I'd be spending a lot of time on trains or in the car going somewhere, and podcasts were just a very accessible, wonderful way to process and absorb information. And the types of podcasts I was listening to, there were a lot of perspectives of life from the point of view of comedians. And every comedian has got their own podcast these days. But also people in the public eye, like politicians, journalists, and even chefs. I love a food podcast. If I were to do another podcast, it would totally be about food. I liked in those podcasts when people went a bit off topic. Seemingly off topic. And they talk about something quite random, but then you could see how that would inform their chosen craft. And I think that's the thing, isn't it? It's like everyone has these outside interests away from their chosen discipline. And you can always find parallels between that and whatever it is that you do. So, I mean, when I'm teaching, I use a lot of analogies because I think they help contextualize a particular concept that you're trying to get across, that you're trying to convey. And it's the same when you're performing music as well. You've got to have that outside experience that has informed your worldview so that you have a story to tell in the mode of delivery that you're trying to that you're using. It might be, you know, singing or playing an instrument or some kind of spoken word segment or anything. So I thought it would be really nice to have a platform where musicians could talk about things not necessarily related to music, because indirectly everything will be related to music just because of who they are. But then there's also the problem that musicians are famously quite bad at talking about themselves. So, I mean, like, you probably saw my face before when you're reading my biography in my face, and it was a little bit squirmy, a little bit, but, you know, you have to own that. And I think that's something that musicians find quite difficult to do. I mean, how many times have you, you know, seen someone being asked, oh, what have you been up to? And people don't really answer very honestly.
Some people say this and that.
Exactly. And they're like, oh, you know, same old. And then you look on social media and they've done this amazing thing, like with some incredible group, or they've played with this recording artist or whatever. And it's like, why didn't you tell me that when I asked you how you were? Like, that's quite significant. But I think, you know, people have that insecurity. They don't want to come across as boastful or, you know, clangy, like they're name dropping, or the other way around. If there's not much happening in their life, they might not necessarily want to share that information. But then, of course, we all go through those insecurities. And I think it makes sense to share those experiences because then it creates a sense of solidarity within the community. Like, everyone knows that typically January is quite a quiet month for freelancers. We can relish in that. We can share that experience, and then when something is going great for a friend, you can be like, "Oh, that's fantastic! You've got that," and take comfort in the fact that you've got something fantastic happening as well. So I think also it's good for people to have an idea of what musicians actually do. Work, because we're not very transparent, even with our peers. And we shroud the industry with mystique ourselves. Not very healthy. And then, you know, it's no surprise that non-musicians don't know what we do. And we get offended when people say, oh, do you get paid to do this? And it's like, Of course I do, you know. And so I hope that by talking to a wide range of musicians in the industry about what they do and their outside interests, will create a useful resource for anyone who has perhaps a limited idea of what it is to be a musician in this day and age. And quite pertinently, recent music college graduates.
Yes.
Because, I mean, I think myself included, coming out of music college, you have quite a limited idea of what you can do. And it's not until you get into the industry you realize all the different things that you can allow yourself to do, and the skills that enable you to do a wide range of things. And it's a huge baptism by fire, really, stepping into freelance musician life. I hope it's really useful for those people. I have a segment in each of my podcasts called Music College Didn't Prepare Me, where people can write in and talk about like their hilarious gigs or things that music college really didn't prepare them for, because there are plenty of things like preparing a tax return or travel sometimes. I mean, there was one time where I was traveling to a wedding quartet gig and I was horrendously late because I got stuck on the M25. And then when I arrived, I still had to get changed into my performance clothes. So I got changed awkwardly in my car and then found a small Baby Bell cheese in my left shoe. I don't know why it was there. So I was hobbling around trying to get cheese out of my shoe with my cello on my back in a summer cocktail dress, just as the bride was arriving. It was super awkward. And then I literally slid into my seat and had to play a movement of the Borodin String Quartet. I mean, no one tells you about that kind of stuff in music college, do they?
No, it's true. Like Sani is just saying talofa. So hey, Sani, lovely to see you. You're reminding me of a story myself, actually, when I made Ave Maria, the video that I've got on YouTube, the Schubert's version. And the part of the story that nobody else sees is that I had to climb a mountain for 3 hours in a ball gown and trainers, and everybody saying to me as I was going, there's all these like, you know, experienced walkers, and they were like, if the weather changes, you will be in trouble.
Well, that's great.
So it is, you're right. It's that thing of like what happens behind the scenes of what we do. And, you know, right up until sometimes the last moment that we're on the stage, we may be affected by nerves or challenges, or, you know, have to, you know, the babysitter's just come in, or, you know, nobody didn't come to feed the dog or the cat, or the, you know, just the many, or we lost our music, we forgot our music, or we couldn't find our keys before we left.
Yeah, it's all these human elements that do affect our lives as musicians, because there is this, perhaps this image of classical musicians is very with it, very together, put together in the tuxedo and like, and very formal and everything like that. But behind the scenes, as you say, there's a lot of other stuff going on. That, you know, I'm sure you look very serene singing atop a mountain, you know, singing Ave Maria. But I mean, I didn't know that you had to scale a mountain to get
it. It literally did have to scale a mountain to sing Ave Maria, and it was freezing, Davina.
Where was this?
It was in Scotland.
Oh, of course.
And it was freezing. I mean, when it was so cold, and you know, and I had to sing this video pretending that I was the warmest person.
Was there a bit of involuntary vibrato going on?
No, I just did my NLP and put myself in a state. But you know, but that's okay, you know, because you can change state like that in NLP. But it was such an experience, you know. Sani is saying something really amazing. He's saying, only life can prepare you for life. Amen to that.
So true. Yeah, you don't know what you're doing until you're doing it. And I think one thing I've noticed, you asked me earlier about things that have gotten out of the people I've had on my podcast, and one common theme that I see running throughout most of my guests is that they're people who've made their own way in the industry, you know, and are willing to make space for others, and find their own voice and raise the voices of other people too. And I mean, I think that's super important, because as I mentioned before, there's that limited scope of of what we must do after college. But then it's widening that as well, widening those paths or alternating those paths as well. And I think a lot of people who I've had on my podcast have perhaps had struggles that have made them, question that beaten path and think, I don't want to go down that way. That's not for me. Or there's no space for me there. Or I want to make space somewhere else.
Yeah.
And I think it takes quite an entrepreneurial attitude to recognize that and not be beaten down by it, but really embrace it and think, oh, well, I'm going to make this my own. And so I think it's just really interesting to see how that attitude as a musician has informed the struggles that they've had outside of music as well. Like you, for example, with your experiences as an NLP coach. I love talking to you about that because those have equipped you with such incredible skills to sing Ave Maria atop a Scottish mountain in the freezing cold. Or like, some of my guests have been disciplined enough to write books or tackle environmental problems or low waste living. Write really creative albums, create sound installations. And I think it's nice to hear about those different things because how long have people been saying that classical music is dying or dead? But it hasn't. It's still here because...
But that's what... But we are the living human being running the classical music. We must never forget that. I think we must never forget that we are not dying. So if we are not dying, the art cannot die as long as it lives within us.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think sometimes we can look at it as where the only place that we can survive is where the gatekeepers are, but we are also the gatekeepers.
Yeah.
And I think that's something that I love about your show is that you do get to see the many things that other people do. And even though they don't recognize that's them being the gatekeepers, that is exactly what it is.
Yeah. And I hope that people will listen and see those people as examples and inspire them to think, oh, well, maybe I could do something similar like that. Maybe I've realized that I don't want to go down that beaten path as well, and I want to make my own path, and as you say, be a gatekeeper. You hope that music college prepares you for certain things, that can show you many doors, but you have to be the person responsible for going through that door, whichever you've chosen to take.
Yeah, absolutely. So Gillian Finnemore is just saying, love the ideas about the gatekeepers. And Hannah Lisa is saying, learning that there isn't just one path in life has been one of the biggest things I've ever learned and is not something that is told to you in colleges and introduced. Well done. Thanks, Hannah Lisa. Yeah. And I think that spaces like that you and I have created, like this Safe at Home session and your As It Comes podcast, these spaces that have been created that give everybody a chance to be seen, to be witnessed. We are only now seeing, where some of the pitfalls have been, or some of the challenges and opportunities that people have had that they've been maybe a little bit afraid to step up into or to work out because they were like, oh, what do I do? But these spaces now gives them a place of reference. And I think that's really, 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 really important.
Yeah. Sure.
Yeah. So tell us, what would you think, in terms of creative output, my lovely, what would be your 3 tips?
My 3 tips. Well, I was thinking about this and first of all, I think very important is to believe in your own idea and believe that it is a good idea.
Yes.
So in my experience, as I mentioned before, I listened to plenty of podcasts in the past and I was like, why aren't there any musicians talking about silly things, and that was my impetus for creating that. And I probably should mention, I did go a sort of roundabout way to As It Comes. I had another podcast with 2 friends in 2018, so almost 3 years ago. And that sort of set me up for the kind of foundation of what I wanted to do, but that finished. And then when that finished, I did have a few doubts thinking, oh, do I want to keep going? Is it a good idea? But I convinced myself that, yes, one door has closed, but it just opens another door.
Yeah.
So I just thought about how, I personally wanted to listen to my peers and other people in the music industry talk about what they do in life. And you have to think, like, what do you bring to the table?
Yeah.
Is there anything out there similar? How is it different? What sets you apart? I mean, like, the easiest way to set yourself apart is just to be yourself, actually, which is really important to remember. And so authenticity plays a big part in believing in your idea. And that ties into my second piece of advice, which would be to focus on quality. So you've got an idea, you've got a fantastic idea, but you need to make sure that you execute it properly. And I'm a firm believer in that you're going to create your best creative output if you are authentic.
Yeah.
So I think it's easy to see what other people are doing. For example, you see an influencer on Instagram or YouTube and you think, oh, I have to act in a particular way or present myself in a particular way. But if that's inherently not you, then it's not going to come across as very good, I don't think, unless you're a very, very good actor. But yeah, you have to be authentic. And as I mentioned before, you will create your best work just by being yourself, I think. A lot of my videos and stuff that I put up on social media are quite silly, but I think that's because I'm quite a silly person. I mean, but that's just me.
And I would just say that you're fun and full of humor. I wouldn't call you like silly, but I would call you like fun and full of humor. It's wonderful.
Oh, good. Yeah. I mean, I it's always nice to laugh about something, isn't it? And I mean, I fell out of a tree last week filming one of those videos, and I thought, well, why not share this with the world? We've all fallen out of a tree. Surely.
Oh, bless you. Oh.
But I mean, as I said before, you can bring something different to the table just by being confident in your own abilities. And
yeah, but the fact that you were even willing to climb a tree to get the idea that you wanted says a lot about you, Davina.
That's true. Yeah, I mean, I did draw a lot of parallels with that particular. I do like climbing things. I think I've mentioned this a bit on my podcast, but my favorite form of exercise is rock climbing.
Amazing.
Bouldering.
Yeah.
Which I haven't been able to do recently because of the restrictions, but that I find a lot of parallels between climbing and music, because when you're climbing a particular route, you have to plan. You have to plan your path. And you have to think, okay, how am I going to enable getting to the top of this wall? And you need focus. Yeah. And if you don't focus, you'll fall.
Yeah, nice.
But then every time you fall, you just think, okay, what can I do differently to make that work? It's like executing a big shift on an instrument or something. So
I love that analogy.
Yeah.
I mean, I love it. You, as a dyspraxic person, what you just said has just changed my life. I have never thought of it like that before, ever, because I love climbing things as well.
Yeah.
And when I'm walking up things, I never thought of it like that. I'm literally planning my route as I go along. Like, if I take that step, it means I won't fall here. And if I and if I won't do that. And actually, if I was to think every time that I wrote something that, because it affects my executive functions, my dyslexia. If I was to think I was planning my route up a mountain or up a thing,
up a mountain to sing Ave Maria.
Yes. I think something's going to change. I'm going to check in with you on that, because I think that's amazing. It's the best analogy that I've had for a plan in a long time. Thank you.
Because you have to really recognize within yourself what you are capable of, how you can change that. Like, okay, that didn't work that time. Why didn't it work? Okay, it's because my foot placement was a little bit wrong. So this time I'm going to change the angle a little bit. And I use this approach a lot if I'm learning a new piece, which is technically quite difficult. Earlier this year, I was learning the Ravel Sonata for violin and cello, which is, I mean, anything by Ravel, you just feel like you're like 5 steps behind, because Ravel knows your instrument more than you do. Where is that harmonic? What string is that? What does that mean in French? And you're, in a way, you're learning a choreography. So you think you've got to string together these smaller units of motions into one big organic thing.
Yeah.
And I find climbing really useful.
It's such a useful, sorry, I'm really, even Marjorie is saying that is a very good analogy, because do you know why? It's because I'm a question. I answer a lot of questions. So I'm very good at asking questions. So all those questions that you just asked, I would normally ask anyway. So how could I improve this? And how da 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 da. But if I can physically envision myself climbing a mountain as I'm asking the questions, so I'm putting a physical, so you remember how we think is how we feel is how we act. If I'm putting that thinking and feeling together at the same time, oh my God, I'm so excited. I'm going to start it today. Yes, exactly. Oh, Matrix.
Wow. I'm so pleased that we've had this breakthrough at 9:30 in the morning. It's very inspiring.
I love this. This is why I love having a chat, because as you can see, we're all in connection. And you talked about earlier about, you know, having like-minded individuals who are willing to go the extra mile. It is no accident that every person on this chat that I can see the name of is a mover and a shaker. Marjorie Ouvry, you know, writes books on play and has been really influential in the lives of children and how they play and how we see the relationship between play as a child and play as an adult. You know, Sani has his own opera company that just defies how we see opera and brings in so much diversity and how we work along. Hannah-Lisa Kirchin, she is a mezzo-soprano, but is a great trailblazer around endometriosis and really is a speaker for that. And, you know, and is also somebody who's so focused and is so flexible and is willing to just share her challenges to help people to be able to solve theirs, you know. So, and Gillian Finnemore is a soprano who is also a Reiki master. So is, you know, raising people's frequencies. So that, you know, if there is no surprise then that in what you're talking about right now, that the people watching this this moment, we're in a very high frequency because of that moment.
Your vibe attracts your tribe.
Yeah, amen. Yeah, you know, and you know, all your crew is directly in line with you. You know, so we like this because you said crew, so I wanted to pick up on your language. I'm very big into semantics.
Yeah.
You know
I mean, I love language as well. I find so many parallels between language and music. And fun fact about me, when I was studying in Sydney, and I did my postgrad studies at the Sydney Conservatorium of Music. And my job to sort of support myself as a student was teaching English as a second language to foreign students. And I mean, it seems a little bit random, I think, sometimes when I tell people, and they're like, really? Why? Also, you've got a New Zealand accent. Why were you teaching English in Australia? Why were people going to Australia to learn English? But beside the point, that those 3 years of my life really helped me think about language and the nuts and bolts of how to put together a sentence. And in a way, it's like it's the same as how you would construct a phrase. And you know, think about how you've got so many choices when you're speaking. What word are you going to emphasize? What inflection are you going to use? It's the same with music as well. And if you're delivering a speech, you know, it's a very natural way of communicating, and we have to try and get that way of communicating in our music making as well. So I was executing all these weird shifts. And
oh my gosh. So Anthea Parishchak is just saying, climb every mountain, ladies. And Sani's saying, eagles, ladies, eagles.
Or like an eagle. Nice.
You know, I love that. And again, we've got, you know, Anthea Parishchak as well. She is an emotion code person. And that is like the most amazing piece of work. She uses like kinesiology and kind of magnets to disperse your negative frequencies, and that changes the patterning within you. But she's also a voice teacher as well, so she uses them both in conjunction. It's like electric. So you know,
it just goes to show you need that point of reference, don't you?
Yes.
You know, it's like when we're making music, we're not just making music full stop. where I mean, a very wise woman told me once that we tell stories. Nadine's podcast episode. But as musicians, as instrumentalists, as singers, we do tell stories. Making music is a way to communicate a message, and you need to have that outside input so that you have a story to tell.
Yes.
Otherwise, I mean, I think I would hope that as performers, we wouldn't aim for the best piece of feedback from an audience member to be something like, I really enjoyed the vibrato you did on your third finger on that F sharp. You know
what though, Davina, there are some of us like that. Sometimes when I do listen to someone sing, I really do like how they did that floaty top at bar 50.
Yeah, for sure. But it's
but not to an audience, obviously, but as a musician to musician.
You have your little like appreciative moments where you're like, ooh, I loved that glissando. It was very did things to me. But I mean, like, it's a part of a bigger picture. I think is what I'm trying to say.
Of course. No, I got it. But it is wonderful. And in those telling of stories, we also tell a part of ourselves, don't we? We tell a part of our own story, and I think that's really important. We had Nelly Midachoyu on one of these, Nelly Midachoyu Kirk on one of these, and she was saying, it's great to have a wonderful voice and it's great to sing, but if the voice isn't really saying something, then actually we just switch off. We don't want to listen to it. It's your whole heart, it's your whole being, it's your whole soul, it's your whole presence. And she was one of those singers that really sang from that place. And and even in challenge, she never made anything a challenge. She brought it to the stage. So it's that thing that we as musicians, it's really important that, I suppose what I'm saying is not to just make art for art's sake, that it is a sense of, if we have an audience in front of us to be telling and giving a message is very, 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 very important. Yeah. But you had one more tip.
So I think I actually only got to the second one.
Go ahead.
It was focus on quality, and we were talking about authenticity, and then we started talking about rock climbing, and but I mean, I love it. So in terms of quality, being yourself, and that will produce, I think, the highest quality product. But also, in terms of a podcast specifically, you have to educate yourself what makes good listening. What would you like to listen to? Something that you write for listening is going to be different from something that you write written down to be read. So radio and podcasts are famous for being the perfect medium for storytelling. Sharing experiences and anecdotes, stories, not so much just spouting facts and figures and statistics. So I think there's a lot that people can think about with that. What would you like to listen to? And we do it in music as well. If we're preparing a piece, you've got to put yourself in the shoes of the audience. Think, would I like to listen to this piece with amazing vibrato on my third finger? You've got to make that choice, right? And then also in terms of related to quality, gear and technology, I think is quite important. So teach yourself. There's so many YouTube tutorials out there. There's so much information. Teach yourself about good microphones, how to use gear. I mean, you've taught yourself how to live stream things on Facebook, and I just think it's sorcery. It's amazing. Amazing technology. And you don't need to spend that much money, although that being said, you probably will end up doing it because you become obsessed with it. But it's worth investing a little bit of money, I think, in creating something of good quality.
I mean, this like what kind of TV station costs me about £35 a month to run. In terms of just having it here, but in terms of time, oh God, we're talking about 40 hours a week, maybe. In terms of it's like a full-time job.
One more thing I wanted to mention in terms of quality, because I think it's quite important, and it's reflected in a bit of what I see on social media, but I can't. And as I mentioned before, I have a big interest in language, having taught English for a few years, but the simple act of proofreading
Yes.
And spell check.
Yeah.
I mean, there have been times where I've seen people post something on social media and it's just littered with typos and grammar mistakes. And I just think, get a friend to read it for you. And they'll spot those things. Yeah. Learn the difference between your, and your.
Yeah.
No, your and your, there, and there, two, and two. Yeah, you know. It's just, if you're an adult and you don't know the difference, ask me. Send me a message. I'll explain it to you. I learned it when I was 6.
Yeah. But sometimes, you know, we have these things, Davina, in terms of language, and we're talking about language, that not everybody is at the same level of language, and they also shouldn't feel opposed to expressing themselves just because they can't do the language in the way that is perceived as the right way. But I really hear you in terms of copy and quality. It is always great to make sure that somebody reads over stuff, which is why when I send out the flyers, I always say, guys, can you check it? Let's do that, because I am dyslexic. Like, can you check that this is what you want? Yeah. But on the other hand, I would hate for somebody not to express themselves just because they feel like they don't have the right language or the right way of writing to express themselves. I really would like to make sure that stays inclusive, because not everybody does have our same sense of what we're doing. But I really hear you. Ask someone to check it, because how it's perceived then.
Yeah, because then it is, in a way, you are putting yourself in the audience's shoes by asking, by opening up and saying, hey, can you look at this? Does this right? And you know, if I've offended anyone who gets
no, I just wanted to make that as a caveat. Because you know, like we're talking about different things, isn't it? That, you know, sometimes people wouldn't even play an instrument if we had to play like, you know, Tchaikovsky or play like or compose like Verdi, you know. So that we have to remember that there are different floors on the lift. You know, but really hear you, but just wanted to also give the other side of it as well, you know.
Thank you.
But you had another one, which was care but don't care too much.
That's right.
which kind of runs into what I'm saying.
It's funny actually, because now I think about it, it does sound like it's contradicting what I just said. It's like, learn the difference between all this. It's really, really important. But also, you want to make sure that you're putting out good quality stuff.
Of course,
But I think in a world where people seem to need validation from numerical quantitative statistics. So, for example, likes, follows, downloads. It's important to detach yourself from that and remember the reason. This goes back to my first thing, which is remember the reason why you're doing it, why you've got that belief and why it was a good idea in the first place, you know. And those things, it's such a slow burn, you know. People, unless it's something absolutely incredibly amazing, overnight sensation, those sorts of things take a long time to build up, I think. So really, really important to just to care, but don't care too much. And then also there are times where you just need to be, you know, give yourself a break, be easy on yourself. Maybe you missed a deadline, or maybe you can't produce something this week, but you know, I see a lot of people say, oh, I'm so sorry, I can't produce a podcast episode this week. And it's like, it's okay, you know. You're saying sorry because you feel like you're letting others down, and you feel like you're letting yourself down, but you have to remember that no one's thinking about your project as much as you are thinking about your project.
Yes, amen to that.
Yes, I tell myself all the time, like, no one cares about your podcast as much as you care about it.
Yeah, exactly. So you need to care about that bit.
It's like, I mean, I think about the things that I really enjoy, you know, certain types of media that I enjoy, and I might really love it, but I might not necessarily write them a heartfelt letter about all the reasons why I enjoyed it. It takes a lot for someone to do that. And so you should really treasure that when you do get that feedback. But just because it's not appearing in your inbox constantly doesn't mean that appreciation doesn't exist.
Exactly. Oh, you're so, you know what? I love what you've just said, because I always believe, when I'm mentoring people and I'm saying, before you leave the conservatoire, even if you're at conservatoire, make sure that you're setting up concerts to be seen, like in your local churches. I don't care if there is one person in the audience, because if that's the person that's supposed to hear you, then you've done your job. So it's that thing, isn't it? Like when you say care, but don't care too much. Stop thinking that somebody else, just because there's only one person listening, that you're not doing it right. Actually, you're most probably in exactly the right place at the right time, and more will join when the time is appropriate.
Exactly. Yeah. And there's also that, that one person could be the spark that lights fire, you never, you never know. It'll be like, this incredible person perform, and I was the only person in the audience, but they played to me, and it was the most intimate experience. And you've got to find this person, and I think there's a lot to be said in that sort of word of mouth if something is of good quality.
Of course, yeah. But what I love about your As It Comes is that it is of great quality. Your podcast is of huge quality. The people that you talk to are very generous and open, but it's also because you are very generous and very open. And the care that you actually take in your podcast, because I know you say care, but don't care too much, but you do really care, Davina.
There is a lot of work that goes.
Yeah, there's a lot of work that goes into what you do, and you do it meticulously. You do it patiently. You do it very lovingly, and you do it with humor and fun and joy, because we can see that you love it. And I have to say that your voice as a presenter, I hope you do get your own radio show one day, because your voice is amazing in that space. I mean, it really is. It's really, really amazing. And, you're never afraid to show your intelligence and your wisdom, but you're never afraid to say, oh, I don't know something either. That is such a rounded space as a presenter to see in someone.
Yeah.
And the fact that you're a fully fledged musician as well is it's just incredible.
Well, I think it is important to show that you don't understand something, because I think I would feel really uncomfortable in an interview if someone just went on and on and on about something, and I was like, because because when I was doing some stuff at the BBC, and one of the people there that was training us, they said, if you're conducting an interview, if you don't understand what they're talking about, chances are the listener's not going to understand.
Yes.
Exactly. So you have to be the ears for the listener as well.
Yes.
Yeah, super important.
So where can we find this amazing podcast, and how can we find you?
So you can hear all 32 episodes of As It Comes on my website, which is asitcomes.com. And I'm also on Facebook. I think my handle is As It Comes Pod. Yeah. And that's the same on Instagram as well. And you can give a little follow. I try to put up little clips of little snippets with subtitles as well, so that you can just see what the podcast is sort of about on social media as a bit of a taster. And then if you like cats as well, there's a lot of cat content on social media, because as I mentioned, outside influences are very important, and my cat is a very important influence on this podcast. He's my assistant producer. But I thought I might also explain, because I realized some people might not know what's the reasoning behind the name As It Comes, and I realized I didn't actually explain it. But As It Comes is terminology for the direction of the bow in string playing. So if you're not a string player, that's what it is. It's basically, so you've got two directions of the bow. You've got down bow when you pull the bow, and up bow when you push the bow. It doesn't really make sense if you're a cellist or a double bassist, because it's just side to side. But as a violinist or violist, it's down, up. So if you're just playing a series of notes where it's just down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up, it's As It Comes. And you'll hear people in rehearsals when someone asks, what's the bowing? And then the section leader will say, slurred two notes, then As It Comes. That's what it means.
Wow.
Separate bows. But anyway, that's the kind of musical meaning for it. But I thought it would be good for a podcast as well, because it describes quite aptly how musicians live their lives.
Yes.
So we don't always necessarily have a grand plan, and we have to just take each day as it comes, especially now when we don't really know what's around the corner. A lot of the time we are just improvising in this industry.
Yeah. Well, I've got more of a plan now that I've got a mountain thing.
Oh,
so I'm good. I'm using that. I'm going to use that. Anthea's just saying she loves cats. Davina, you have been such a bright, wonderful spark on this show this morning. And, you know, you've just been such a treasure. And it's been so, so, so lovely to sit here with you and have a chat. Please, everybody, please support As It Comes. Watch it's on Apple as well. It's on
Spotify. The episodes are on YouTube as well. I mean, there's nothing to look at, but on YouTube, crucially, there are subtitles, so in case you can't listen for whatever reason, you can follow along with the words. And on the website, actually, Nadine, there is an E at the end of as it yeah.
Oh,
so,
have I done
speaking of proofreading.
Oh my God, I'm sorry, darling. Look,
okay.
Here we go. asitcomes.com. There we go. I've done it again. Is that all right? Let's just see.
Has it gone?
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah, so, there we go.
Yeah, so it's out there in audio format, but also there are transcripts of each of the episodes as well, which you'll find on the website in case you feel like reading.
Brilliant.
So, thank you so much for having me.
Thank you, everybody, for being here, and thank you all for your contributions. That's really, really, really beautiful to have you here. Tomorrow, I'm excited because we have Solange here from the Black British Theatre Awards. She's coming to explain all about those, and I'm so excited to have her on tomorrow. And that I'm really excited about that. But just to close off, one thing that Davina says, you know, one door closes and another one opens. I remember we had Chichi Wanaku on this series, and she says, one door closes, and remember that doors are made to be opened, so just open the next one.
Yeah, that's great. I definitely heard Chichi saying that.
It was just so funny the way she said it. I just said, so just, you know, if a door's closed and, you know, another one hasn't opened, just open the door, open another one.
Yeah, you can't wait for it to be opened.
Yeah,
you know, it's a handle.
Yes, exactly.
Open it yourself.
All right, everybody, take care. I'll see you tomorrow. And thank you so much for joining us. You've been amazing. See you.